Hi everyone, so 12th July, end of the week. So let's have a look at what went on this week. So, quite a busy week getting to know my second team. So, if you remember from last week, I moved to two new teams. Last week I spent a lot of time with one team. This week I'm spending a lot of time with the other team. So, it's kind of interesting looking at both teams, seeing how they work, and really digging down into this second team. And one of the things about digging down into the second team and just is trying to balance the two teams. Like, what are the needs of those two teams? What are the needs of and how I can balance the needs of those two teams and also come out not working for sort of back to back day to night, understanding where I'm best valued, not just sort of spinning my wheels trying to attend every meeting and trying to be there for no reason apart from just being there. So really trying to step back this week, understand the team I joined last week, figure out the team I'm sort of looking at this week, and then next week hopefully start to make a cohesive sort of plan in terms of what I want to do, where I want to add value, and how I can best add value with those two teams. One of the things about having two teams is that trick, that balance between, okay, so you've got two teams, you're responsible for the delivery on both these teams. You can't be there at every meeting, you can't be there at every ceremony. You've got to then understand, okay, so how can I put myself in the best position in both these teams? How can I put myself at those crucial points in both these teams where I can add most value? And actually, that's a really useful exercise I found for me already. And this is just the end of week 2 with two teams, is figuring out best value. It's like that training video of the jar, and beside the jar you've got the grains and the bread. I might have even talked about this before, but if you want to fill that jar, you can fill it with the grains first of all, and you'll have difficulty putting the bread on top. Or you can fill it with the big bread and loaves, and then you can pour the grain, and the grain will fit around the loaves. So in the same way, when you've got two teams, actually, you want to figure out what your loaves are, what your grains are, and then you can load up your jar. Your jar is the time you have available in the week, so you can load up your jar. Now, what you don't want to do is pack your jar to the brim. So I'm trying to figure out what those key things are, what the loaves are, what those breadsticks are, and then the grains I can dispose of. I don't need to be there. They don't need to be in the jar. I can have that thinking space around what I'm doing, because that's obviously important as well. You can't just be continually meeting people, continually talking. You've got to sit back, have a think. So that's the kind of thing I've been sort of challenged with this week, and it's been a super interesting week in terms of thinking about where I can develop that. The other thing about moving to a new team is just learning about two new whole types of products. So I just got to grips with my previous team's product. Now I've moved into a new product, trying to get to grips with it. So I'm the type of person who needs to understand something before I can sort of progress, move on with it, and as in move it along. So I need to have a full understanding of it, and for some products that comes easy. For some products, like the one I'm working on with one of the teams, a little bit more in depth. So I've got to sort of spend a bit more time figuring out how it works, what it is that we're aiming to do, what is the purpose of it, what are the dependencies across different teams. So I've been doing that this week, and I've also been having one-to-ones with people on the team, and that's been super interesting. Again, just meeting people one-to-one, I think, is super valuable, because you meet people. Well, I meet people, if you remember, on at the start of last week, it was an away day, so I met people in person on the away day, and that was fantastic. But it's still no sort of substitute for a one-to-one conversation. So it would have been nice to have one-to-one conversations in person, and obviously I did have conversations with people on the day, but it's not quite the same. When you have a long action-packed sort of away day, you can't really have those sort of one-to-one type conversations that you want in the breaks, because you want people to sort of relax a bit. Not to say these one-to-one conversations are so heavy, but it's all about work. It's all about work practices, what people are doing at the moment, what people enjoy doing. I'll also ask people what they'd like to improve, or what improvement they'd like to see in the team, and then start looking at working practice and start looking at implementing some of those improvements. I find there's a bit of a risk asking people that question, because if you ask it and then make a change which doesn't reflect what they've said, they either feel like they've been ignored, or that you have misconstrued what they've said. So not everyone thinks in that way, but some people do. And so to avoid that, I think when I make those changes, and there are some changes that I think need to be made, I have to be careful in terms of the framing of that, to make sure it comes across in the way I mean it, which is, this is sort of, this is a joint understanding. This is a proposal of how we're going to move on with things, and there's always retros and so on to look back, refine, and move forward. So at the moment, I'm just thinking about those changes, speaking with the product manager, and seeing sort of what the thoughts are, and putting some together. So there's some quite obvious ones. One of them, interestingly enough, is actually making sure everyone knows what the vision of the team is, and that's a tough one because, okay, well, first of all, why do you need to know the vision? Well, you need to know the vision because that's what you're working towards. Every little bit of work you do, you should understand how it fits into the larger puzzle, which is the vision of your team. If you don't know that, then you're just plugging away, doing one ticket after another ticket, no sense of urgency, no sense of satisfaction. You're not working towards something. So you need to have a team which is working towards something, and that's where the vision comes into play. Then you can do your individual tickets, but actually your ticket is going to fit into this slot in this massive sort of vision. So that's kind of important, I think. And a few other things, minor things that I think would sort of tweaking would improve, but on the whole, one of the teams is set up amazingly well. The other team, on the other hand, needs a bit more work. It's a very different team to teams that I've worked with in the past. It'll be interesting in terms of ways to move that team forward. I should note here, I say it needs a little bit of work. They're all working really well, and that's the thing. A team can work super hard and super well, but are they achieving the results that they could be achieving if there was a more cohesive structure to it? And that's what I want to look at and explore with the other team, because they're certainly working hard, they're certainly doing good work, but in terms of progress towards priorities, towards the roadmap, towards the organizational aims, is it happening? That's the sort of thing I've got to explore for that second team. So busy in that sense. I've also signed up for coaching on the Mo training course. So not being coached, but being a coach, and being the trainer for a cohort of people in September. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, I'm a qualified Mo coach, and so I'm going to use my skills and apply them in coaching other people. Something I want to get into outside of work as well. I quite like the idea of life coaching, so I'm going to look into that as a possible pursuit, just for my own satisfaction in terms of helping people, being a coach of some sort. So sign up for that this week, and that's all sorted, ready for September. It works out well for me, like I said, in terms of my own development, but also works out well for the organisation, because they are obviously, I'll be a better trained coach, ask better questions, I can explore, I can understand situations better, I can ask questions in a way where people are more productively responding, so on. And that was my week. So a lot of thinking, essentially a lot of thinking about the new teams, a lot of thinking about ways of working and so on, but enjoyable week, really getting to grips with both teams. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.